This is the worst video of Litmus, by the way. Hi cuties, and welcome to day 17 of Litmus. Today is gonna be a rough video because today we are going to talk about books that I absolutely hated reading this year. These are the worst books of 2021, aka the books that trigger my seasonal depression. I won't be holding any of these books up because I've already gotten rid of them for how much I hated them or heavily disliked. But some I hated. Basically, these are all the books that I've read this year that I have rated a 2 or 1 star read. Thankfully, there aren't that many, but there are 14 of them. I'm just preparing myself to get very angry at remembering these books and remembering they existed and I wasted my time reading them. These are in order from January to October-ish, because it's currently November when I'm filming this. But I've also read like decent books this month, so none of them made this list. December will likely be fine, but you don't know until you read it. I'll put a thing in the comments if I say, hey, this book goes on here too, with a very angry 2. All right, let's just get it over with. Let's talk about the shitty books that I read this year, which, you know, it's subjective, but I'm always right. First one is Grave Maidens by Kelly Kuhn, I believe, and this I was super hyped for. It was one of the 21 books of 2021 that I wanted to read because it dealt with Sumerian mythology. Well, not mythology, but Sumerian civilization. That's how far back this historical fiction went, and I was very excited, but it was written so poorly. It was so static in its sentences. It just was so bland, and I couldn't get into it at all. Get that if you're gonna write Sumerian culture, like, you know, if you go into Sumerian language, it all feels very static in the original language when you translate it, but you were writing a fictional novel. I think you can use better language and still hold on to the Sumerian part of this, but made no sense to me. I hated it. And there were sisters in it. And once again, it did the younger sister being a frivolous idiot who thinks only about glory and boys and stuff. And I hate that trope because I'm a younger sister and I don't think about those things. And it doesn't represent me as a younger sister at all. It's very annoying. And I didn't like the main character. Everybody was so bland and flat, and I hated it. I'm going to be saying that phrase a lot in this video. Number 2 was Seasons of the Storm by El Cosimano, if I remember. I'm remembering these all off my head here. Seasons of the Storm, it was okay. I think this was a 2 star. I'm not a fan of established relationships, and this one had it, and it had a relationship that I did not understand why they worked together or the concept of this. This was supposed to be seasons personified, basically, and there were so many of them that I didn't understand this whole universe that was created. It made no sense to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like our 2 main characters. I didn't feel the chemistry between them at all, and I just think it was kind of poorly done. I didn't believe anything in this story. I couldn't suspend disbelief enough to like this story. It was truly disappointing because I believe, was this a 21 of 2021? I think this one was as well. And I was super hyped for it, and it just did not deliver. Number 3 is the Optimi, or Optimi. I think that's how you actually pronounce it. I can talk. The entire book is a prologue that makes absolutely no sense. It is a chunk, too. It's like over 500 pages, and this book is basically being sold purely for the aesthetics of it. Like, they went all out and got this interactive app. I talk about it in the full review. It was so hyped. Like, one of my friends went nuts over it because it was on a TikTok, and he sent it to me, and it was like, I want to read this. I'm like, all right, let's pre-order it. And we pre-ordered it, and then I read it, and it's not that I didn't understand it, it's that it made no sense. It didn't follow a real narrative, and all of the female characters in it felt like male gazes. so I wasn't a fan of that aspect either. By the end of it, I kind of see what their prologue story was, but I do not think it needed to be that long of a story. It was a beautiful book, looked beautiful, did not deliver on the inside. Number 4 is Cursed by Thomas Wheeler and Frank something, I forget. I could look these up, but I think it's funnier to see me struggle to remember books that I don't like. This was a kind of King Arthur retelling, which I already don't like King Arthur retellings, but this deals with Nimue, and I was just bored out of my mind with this one. I didn't find anything compelling about this. I didn't like it. I even tried. I watched one episode of the Netflix series and I hated that too. It did nothing for me. It did absolutely nothing, and I wasn't a big fan of the art style because it's not a graphic novel, but it has pictures in it to go along with the story, and I wasn't a fan of that either, so that didn't add anything for me for the book. I just literally, I remember reading it and just wanting to get through it. It's kind of like, man, I should learn how to DNF, but I don't, just in case, and I should have DNF'd this book. I hated it. And I can't stand King Arthur retellings. I hate the story of King Arthur. I just hate it. I'm sorry, I do. Number 5, Jonathan Unleashed. I don't remember who this is by, but I remember I hated it. I hated this so much. I thought this was going to be a cute story about a guy taking care of a dog, and it turned into a creepy jerk who is a disaster, but not in the fun way. He's like dating this girl, and this girl is like a wedding planner, and they end up getting engaged just for the sake of getting engaged for it to be live streamed. And they're not meant to be together at all, but he's also like the worst. He keeps hitting on this barista who is married and clearly does not want him doing anything, and he puts on a lot of pressure on her, and then also to a non-binary person as well. And he's kind of a disgusting human being, and I hated this. Ugh, it just made me so angry. I can't even like coherently talk about this without remembering the vehement rage I had in reading this book. It was terrible. Absolutely abhorrently terrible. Number 6, We Are The Wildcats by Siobhan Vivian. I didn't like this one because it bounced around a few characters, and I think it bounced around more characters than it needed to. Also hated how this book ended. I was really expecting them to do something bigger with the whole thing with the coach, but they didn't, and that coach should have been fired and jailed. Just saying. I never really liked sports books either, because for me sports are pointless. Just my personal thing. In every sports story, it's always about someone getting like severe injury, and I'm like, why do you put yourself through that if this is your results? Because it's a very short career choice before you get injured, and then you're like permanently injured. I don't understand that. I'll never understand that. I don't understand the hype around sports and like the celebrity of it. I don't understand it, and I will never understand it, and that's probably a big factor in why I didn't like this book. But the characters that I did like in this book didn't get the page time that they deserved, and the characters I hated got way more. So I think this should have been cut down a lot between what characters we were seeing. Number 7, Reawakened by Colleen Hawke. I had owned this book for so long, and I should have never picked it up. This book kind of bastardizes Egyptian mythology. It plays on the paranormal romance, but the romance is a socialite, selfish, annoying girl who does nothing and a mummy. This main character did absolutely nothing the entire time. I hated her so much. She really ruined this story for me. And it had that moment of everyone kind of like falling in love with her all the time thing. And then I looked ahead at the sequels and discovered some very disturbing things that I'm like, I don't want to read that. I'm out. But it's a paranormal romance with a mummy. And there's only one mummy that I love. And no one can defeat him. No one. Except, I guess, Brendan Fraser. But deservedly so. Number 8. No Country for Old Gnomes by Delilah S. Dawson. Nope, I forgot the other one. Kevin Hearn. I remember. Kevin Hearn. This was the sequel to The Princess Beard. Princess Beard was a fun read for me. It has a lot of bathroom humor, and it's kind of, it's almost like, not like, I don't want to say it's trying to be something else, but in the realm of like Welcome to Night Vale absurdism is kind of this one, but more fantasy. And No Country for Old Gnomes, I didn't connect with it. I didn't find the same enjoyment. And even with, not Princess Beard, excuse me, Kill the Farm Boy, I only liked a few aspects of it, and it was like a 3-star read. So going into the sequel with that one being even lower, I'm not going to finish the series. So I did not read The Princess Beard, and I just found that it just didn't interest me. There's nothing really bad about it. I can see people who would like it for the absurdism part of it, but it deviated too. It was just like making a bunch of bathroom humor with trying to put a plot around it. I feel like that's where it started. It was just like, let's write a bunch of like fart jokes and bathroom jokes and sex jokes and try to make a book about those. That's what it felt like to me, and that's not my humor at all. Number 9, The Shadows by Alex North. It was a suspense thriller that I thought was going to be more paranormal because of the Whisper Man, but I haven't actually read the Whisper Man. I don't think, did I keep it? I don't even know if I kept the Whisper Man at this point. But I didn't enjoy this. Again, it does deal with like a detective as the main character, which is usually a red flag for me. The Shadows, I wasn't a huge fan of. I'm not really into stories that feature detectives, for one, solving murders. The twist of it all, of who done it kind of thing, I was like, it didn't do anything for me. Number 10 is The Happy Camper. I do not remember who this is by. This was a contemporary romance, and it was fine at first. I liked the situation the main character was in, because at the time that I read this, it was similar for me having just lost my job and not having any direction in life. Aside from the romance part where she was like dating somebody who at the time and it didn't go well. That was the only different part for me. But then she moves home and starts renovating this old camper, taking care of her grandpa, and her mom is there, but her mom and her don't get along. I really didn't like the mom-daughter relationship. I thought it was very strange. Starts doing this and kind of getting close with the hardware store guy, and then it just took this very religious turn that I was unprepared for, and I did not like. Like, it got super Christian real fast. And it also I didn't like how the characters ended up coming together in the end, and we didn't get to savor that as well, which is a problem. But for this romance, I wasn't feeling it at all. I also wanted more of a build-up for an actual like fight between mother and daughter. I really didn't like that. That was such out of left field, because it came in like 60% into the book, and then all of a sudden everything was religion. And I really, really didn't like that. Number 11, I was very depressed that I did not enjoy, because so many people on BookTube love this book, but that is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. I couldn't connect with this one. I wanted to love it so bad, and I just didn't. I don't know what it was. I didn't quite grasp like the world building, and I didn't understand it really. Like I didn't quite understand what was happening most of the time, and so I couldn't connect with anyone or anything happening. It was like purely an aesthetic book as well, and I'm sad I didn't like it. I really wanted to like it. That's what I'm probably on this list. I think I'm most depressed about not liking, aside from one other that I'm really depressed about not liking. Number 12 is Reign of the Fallen by Sarah Glenn Marsh. I remember this one because it was more recently. And again, this was a 21 book of 2021, and I was thoroughly disappointed with it. I didn't care for our main characters. It started with an established relationship again. The main character is supposed to be this really good, like, scout in the dead world, but I never see proof of this. And she's bisexual, and that was like the only thing. It was bisexual necromancers is how it's marketed. And like, yeah, she is, but it's weird because she was dating the brother and then ends up dating the sister. And I find that to be very, very weird. And I don't like that. The familial part of it is just like, it puts too many misgivings in my brain. Like, it's just weird thinking that you once dated my brother and now you're gonna date me, or it's like, did you ever really like them, or did you ever really like me? Am I just a good replacement? You know, it brings in too many things like that that I don't like. And I also really sided with the villain on this one. This is one where the villain, I'm like, I get it, dude. He's absolutely right. Like, the villain was right, because the whole world is run by dead people. And there's no reason for it, because the dead people have to consistently live under this shroud, because if it gets taken off, then they become these evil monsters called shades. Like, why would you risk that with your king? Like, with anyone, all of the nobility and stuff, everybody is all these dead people that keep getting resurrected, and they run everything, and the place will not change. Why? This is a terribly built world, and the villain is like, get rid of the dead people, and only the living should, like, yeah, dead people had their chance. You know, dead is dead. What? Like, I sided with the villain. Number 13, You Say It First by Katie Cotugno. I think that's how you say the last name. I'm sorry. I just didn't care for these characters at all. It's a rom-com with a girl who is very politically active and accidentally, or calls this number, but it's the number of a boy's dead father. And he answers, and she calls for him, and he's like, he's dead. And then she calls him back on her personal phone, which is like, you would have gotten fired so fast, girl. And they develop this phone relationship. They're both very different people. They meet, they kind of fall in love, but they fall out. It ends on a weird note, and I don't see much change from either of them. They're both kind of sucky characters that I just didn't like. I didn't like them at all, and I felt bad, but I didn't at the same time, because it just sucked. And lastly, this book I'm probably the most mad about not liking, and that's Wildfire by Carrie Mack. I'm the most mad about this because it was a very hype book for me personally, because it was like a survival story with a romance in it. That's what I was told. And Fee was awesome and bought this book for me as a gift. And so I'm even doubly mad because it was a gift and I hated it. I hated it so much, because it was way more emotionally heavy than I originally thought it was going to be. With a girl whose grandmother has just died, and she's kind of stuck in the loss from that. She fails a year at school and is going to have to repeat a year, and she has no real direction in life, and she has this unrequited crush on her best friend, who is also dating this other girl who's super nice and awesome. And the two of them are best friends and have been best friends forever, and they're going to go on this big hike trail towards fire camp, where they're going to learn how to fight forest fires. But lo and behold, disaster happens on their way, and the whole time you think she's going to confess her feelings, but she never does. And then a big spoiler happens, and I hated that. I hated that so much. And I hate how the character turns out in the end, because her mom left her, and her mom was also not okay in the head. At one point, I believe, kidnapped her and then let her go or something. And she never wanted to turn out like her mom and just disappear. And by the end of the book, what the hell does she do? She does that. She just goes off on her own. And I'm just like, what character growth did you have then? What was the point of any of this? And it made me so mad. And I apologize to Fee for buying it for me, because I was so angry with it. But man, this book made me mad. I'm so mad at it. I'm still reeling from it. This is the book that I read coming out of surgery, when I was already in like a shitty mood from having surgery, and that just made it all the worse. Those were the books that trigger my depression. I'm gonna go have to watch something cute and happy now, or read something cute and happy. I'll probably have to go dive into Red, White, and Royal Blue to bring me out of this little depression pool of disappointment. Anyway, those are the books that sucked this year. What books sucked for you this year? Put them down in the comments below, or on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter. Check out my Ko-fi page if you want to support me as a content creator, and maybe I'll use that money to buy better books. No, I'm going to use it for my editor. But anyway, I will see you tomorrow, cuties. Bye! I don't remember who this is by. Something Noah, Travis, something like that. It's a 3 name. It's Brendan Fraser, who I would love no matter what. Even without the recent hype of bringing him back and uncanceling him, I never strayed from my love of Brendan Fraser. Never. Ooh, the camera's dying. Don't bump the camera. Chris. Yep, we're just gonna rub against the tripod. It's fine.